Hi, everybody. Welcome to the QB School. I'm JT O'Sullivan. Today, Q&A. We're going to do a deep dive into some pass pro, talk about some rain game kind of QB, maybe changes, adjustments, talk silent count, and maybe at the very end, talk a little CTE, get serious. So I'm excited. Thank you for being here today. Let's dive into it. Welcome to the QB School. All right, first question. Levi, 6859. Hey, JT. I found your channel on my search to learn more about football to increase my knowledge of the game, and I'm loving the content. Keep doing what you do. My question is, you mentioned protection a lot and a number that is associated with it. Can you explain protection and that number, please, and thank you? So Levi, great question. Absolutely. I'll do my best. And I think that number that you're referring to is 4. And what I mean by that normally is we talk about 4 weak or 4 strong. And really the simplest way is to kind of talk through it, and then I'll maybe show you a diagram here and see exactly what I'm talking about. But really at its core element to me, and it can mean different things to different systems, but to me when we're talking general kind of macro football, 4 weak and 4 strong just means they're blitzing a 4th guy to that side. And so oftentimes in pass protection, there will have to be some sort of adjustment. There's lots of different ways to do it, and we'll talk through the different ways to do it. But how are you going to handle that 4th defender to a side? Because oftentimes you don't have a person necessarily locked in to block that person. So you have to make some sort of adjustment either in the pass pro unit or in the perimeter unit with a wide receiver. So let's dive into it here. Take a look at this diagram. All right, let's talk some pass pro 4 week here. Give some examples. So defensively, it normally refers to the 4th guy blitzing, and that's often a DB type. So if any of these 4 guys were to blitz, that would technically be a 4th defender to a side. And so it gets a little, the easiest way to think of it is just a DB type blitzing when you also have a linebacker coming to that side. So now you have essentially 4 to a side right here. So you need to have a plan on how you want to take care of that. Let's just, for example here, I'm just talking about normal kind of 7-man pass protection unit. Okay, the tight end is out on a route. Got the wide receivers are out on routes, and we got 7-man pass protection, and this is going to be a slide to the will. Okay, so the 5 offensive linemen are going to go to the will and block the 4 down linemen. Okay, so then the fullback is going to be locked up on the mic, and the tailback is going to be on the Sam. Okay, this is often called F2. It's called a bunch of different things in the West Coast world. Either way, we got 7 guys. They got 7 guys in the box. We're blocked up. Uh-oh, free safety blitzes. He's going to walk to the edge and blitz. Now, what are we going to do offensively? Now, I've been around a bunch of different systems, a bunch of different ways to handle this. I think the easiest way, in my opinion, is to have this guy, the tailback in the back, do what they call scan. So he scans. So his responsibility is technically the Sam linebacker. Well, he would also have this strong safety if he were to come. So it's basically a 1-2 dual read out here. Well, if those guys don't come, then he can scan back the other way for 4 week. So he's got a scan read. Okay, so that's one way to handle it. All right, so they hit us with a 4 week. Luckily, we hit them with the Sam. We hit them with the scan. Uh-oh, but they know we scan, and they walk their Sam out. So now he's blitzing. So now the guy he has to block first is blitzing. So now he's got to go. What do we do? Okay, the next way to handle this is a redirect. So what do we mean by a redirect is the line, remember where the line was going? The line was going right here to the will. Well, now we're going to get a redirect. So the quarterback or center usually will redirect the protection to now they are sliding to this free safety or the 4th defender weak. This 4th defender weak is now where the line is going. So the line's going to take those 5 right here. Well, now that changes the read for the fullback. Now the fullback has to go right here. He's coming all the way across. And now the tailback's dual read is now 1-2. So it just shifts where the line is going. That's called a redirect. Now, the reason most teams don't like to do redirects, you either live in a world of redirects, but the problem with the redirect is that it changes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7 guys, 8 guys understanding of the pass protection just for one guy, a DB blitzing, as opposed to scanning, which all scanning does is change one guy. He has the responsibility. He's coming across for the scan. So that's one way to handle 4 weak. The other way to handle 4 weak, which I've also been a part of, is called side adjusts, or most often side adjusts. So let's say we have Fox 2 double go on. So all these guys are running go routes. We get a little middle field read here. Hey, this is the read. Well, we get hit with a 4 weak. Now, do we have scan on? It doesn't matter. It's a side adjust route. So you often see in my notes, SA right here. So side adjust, meaning if either of the 4 guys come, the corner or the free safety, we are going to run a special route. Okay, side adjust right now, let's just say, is a dart, 1-step slant. So if we get hit with this right here, we're going to get a side adjust, and now only 2 guys have to change, the quarterback and the wide receiver. But you're asking a lot of a wide receiver to see the 4 weak element of a pass protection. So again, it's who you want to make the decisions in pass pro. Do you want all the offensive line and the tail and the entire pass pro unit to do a redirect? Can certainly do it. Do you want to just scan to protect 4 weak? We can certainly do that too. Got the tailback back here, best seat in the house. He's going to see this 4 weak, be able to scan and come take the hit off. Or do you want to side adjust it, where you have the wide receiver that now has to change their route and the quarterback has to see it and deliver the ball? Okay, you want to do side adjust? Well, now what happens if they hit us with a corner cat? Hey, now the side adjust isn't the same. You don't want to run a dart into a free safety who's coming downhill on you right here. You want to run a skip off the line or whatever, any different element. So really it causes all sorts of issues. 4 weak is all bad. Now you got to have a plan. I often remember hearing about Peyton Manning all the time. He would always say, what if? What if we get this? What if we get that? And it was always, what if we get 4 weak? What if we get 4 strong? What if we get 4 weak in this protection? And so every protection is going to have some answer to handle how you want to handle 4 weak. So are we going to redirect? Are we going to scan the back? Are we going to side adjust? And really those are the core elements of how you handle it. And that's kind of like the master's class of pass protection. How are we going to handle 4 weak? We can usually handle any box protection. What I mean by that is if the linebackers come, they should be picked up in most protections, depending on how many people we have in, as long as everybody's not getting out. But if you have kind of your core group, especially a 7-man protection, or really a 6-man protection most of the time, either way, you should be able to handle 4 weak with some sort of call. It's either a redirect where the line is sliding. It's either a scan from the back, who's got the best seat in the house, very back, he should be able to see everything. Or it's a side adjust. The wide receiver to that side is going to change their route. The quarterback's going to see it. They're going to be on the same page and beat him with the ball. So that's really the essence of 4 weak and 4 strong. You got to have a plan. You got to have it worked many, many times. You got to be able to know whose responsibility is it. Is it the entire pass protection unit? Is it the back? Is it the quarterback and the wide receiver? How are we going to handle it? And that's really the essence of it. Hopefully that made sense. It's a lot. It's probably one of the hardest, if not the hardest thing to handle in pass protection, as long as having a plan for it. It gets even more complicated when everybody's at the line of scrimmage and you can get hit with 4 either side. It's like a punt rush 0 look. That's why 0 is so hard, but you can make people pay because there's no safety back there. They're voiding areas in the zone, so there are opportunities to make big plays, especially if they struggle to tackle if you get the ball out on a side adjust or a hot route. So all right, next question. Charlie. Hey, JT, French football fan here. Love your channel. For us Europeans, you really help understand aspects of the game unheard of on the old continent. Could you do a video explaining the differences between a 4-3 and a 3-4 defense? Thanks a lot. Absolutely, Charlie. To me, there are very few differences. I think it'll seem a little bit more complicated than it really is. Either way, there are 7 guys in the box. Show you about the responsibilities of it, what changes. But I think the easiest way to think of it is basically in a 3-4, there are 3 defensive linemen. In a 4-3, there are 4 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers, and it's just switched for a 3-4. And really, it changes personnel-wise. It changes areas you can attack a defense. But in the essence, it's 7 guys in the box, have this similar gap responsibilities when you break it down to its absolute core. But let's look at a few diagrams to better understand it. So the 4-3 first up here, we're going to look at the box. This is what it talks about. Again, that first letter is the number of defensive linemen, 4-3. So right here, we got 4 defensive linemen. This is an over front. We got 3 linebackers, often called the Will, the Mike, and the Sam. Okay, this is the nose and the defensive tackle. Oftentimes the nose plays in a 1 technique, which is this inside shade of the guard, and a 3 technique, which is the outside shade of the guard. So this is the defensive tackle. This is the nose, defensive tackle. And then the ends play either outside on a 9, 7, whatever, different shades that they can play out here on the tackles and the tight ends. But in essence, at its core, it's a 4-3, 4 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers, Will, Mike, Sam. And again, this is an over front. An under front would just put the tackle right here and the nose right here. These two guys would switch. So you get out of here and be an under front. Oftentimes on an under front, this guy will walk out to the line of scrimmage. So that is a 4-3 at its simplest form. Now a 3-4, all it does is change how many defensive linemen are in the field. So now there's 3 defensive linemen and we got 4 linebackers. Now I don't often see them labeled M and M. Usually this second inside linebacker or a weak inside linebacker. Okay, so this is the tight end right here. So this is the strength side. So you get the Sam, the Mike still, the Will still usually the weak inside linebacker. And this one is called a bunch of different names. I've most often heard it called the plug inside linebacker. But basically you just take that defensive tackle out at the line of scrimmage and you put another linebacker back there. So we basically have a 3-4, 3 defensive linemen, 4 linebackers, often called the plug here, not the M. So again, changes personnel wise. This is a little bit harder for these guys. They're usually can often play 2-gap defensive linemen. So you got to be big, strong guys. I always think of like the New England Patriots have these huge defensive linemen, big nose guards, Vince Wilfork, huge defensive linemen, Richard Seymour, guys who can occupy 2 gaps and really manhandle people at the line of scrimmage. And then these guys are defensively usually run stuffers here inside, got to be able to play downhill, take advantage of these huge gaps here that this defense provides right off the guard area. So again, really just the easiest way to think of it is the first number, defensive lineman, 3 defensive linemen. Second number, 4 linebackers. And you notice the back end on all those still have 4 DBs back there in normal down and distance. So 3-4, 4-3. Hopefully that helps make sense. I remember learning about it, thinking that it was way more complicated than it is. It's really just, if you're a football fan in Europe, it's just a different formation. There's only so many ways to line guys up in soccer. There's just different ways to take advantage of what your personnel strengths are. So if you have big, strong, huge ends that can handle 2 gaps, you got a big nose guard, a 3-4 is something you might want to do. If you've got 4 guys who can get after the quarterback and you don't have to bring a whole lot of pressure, trick people at all, you probably want to run a 4-3 where those guys can just rush the quarterback and you got guys who can make plays sideline to sideline at the linebacker position. So great question. Hopefully that helped. Jeffrey, hey, JT, love the channel. You're an inspiration. I don't know about that. Can you give your opinion on how the NFL is handling CTE, including new rules, how they affect the game? Also, any experience you have taking hits or concussions? Have you had any concussions? Have you played or met other players at all levels that have had a high number of concussions? Just curious on your thoughts and the current state of football in this department. This is a really important question, and I've been waiting for an opportunity to talk about this. My thoughts with this are that I think it's getting better. I don't think it's anywhere close to where it needs to be or where the game is evolving. Concussions, if you play football, they touch you on many different layers. And so personally, definitely gotten my bell rung. I was never diagnosed with a concussion. I'll tell a story about just kind of what it used to be like. For me personally, I just had this kind of, and this is dating me, right? Like this is generational to a certain extent. I think it's getting better nowadays. But for me personally, there was no way I was ever going to come off the field. Like I waited so long for an opportunity to play. If I ever were to get out there, I was not going to let a trainer or a doctor tell me that I, had a hurt head or had a headache or something like that. And so every team that you would go to, they'd make you take these concussion baseline tests. Like here are 5 words, repeat the 5 words back to me. Can you do it? How long did it take you to take these tests? And like blinking tests and all these kind of CTE things. And this is back in like the mid 2000s. Well, I used to personally, and I think many people did, I don't want to throw other people in the bus, but me personally, I used to definitely miss a number of those questions on purpose because if I wanted that kind of baseline to be low. So if I ever did have an issue in the game, it would match kind of a low baseline that I gave in these tests. Well, when I was with the 49ers, and I think the trainers used to tell this story if they don't still for the 49ers, I took the test, did so poorly on the test that they made me take it again with a learning specialist, like in the room, like in front of me. You'd had to take like this, like pencil around a maze type thing, and you can't lift up the pencil. And I would like lift it up and like go really slow and not finish it. And so I did it again in front of this learning specialist, and they basically told the doctors and the trainer, like, either this guy is purposely failing, which I was, or he has like the most severe learning disability we've ever seen. And so it was one of those things where I just wasn't coming off the field. Like, that's not to say like I was the most tough guy in the world. That was just the mindset then. It wasn't as prevalent, well known. People didn't know kind of the long-term impacts that we do now. And so it's different and it's better now. Personally, for me, I have a number of friends that I'm nervous about, their long-term health, how they ended their careers in the league, what it looks like for their future. Personally in San Diego, I used to work out with Junior Seau in the mornings for a few years, so that element of it, doesn't, has a huge resonates in this area of the country, this region of the country, his impact and what, that looked like for his life. I think it's different, for me as a backup quarterback most of the time in the league. I wasn't banging heads every single day at practice, whether it's the massive, huge, hard hit or it's the cumulative kind of subconcussive hits you get at practice every day, banging heads. So I think the game will continue to evolve. I don't think it's there yet by any means. Hopefully the equipment kind of accelerates the improvement also, but to think that I have the answers, it's beyond the scope of my capacity. But I think that I'm nervous about the future of the game when it comes to CTE and people not playing or people playing other sports. And I think it's worthwhile to have that conversation and realize, see what the future of this looks like. Is it going to be boxing? Is it going to be that type of thing? But it's an important conversation. I acknowledge that I don't have all the answers by any means. I have my own kind of anecdotal experience with it, with what it was when I was playing. I think it's much better now, even in the high school game. It's definitely better. People are more aware of it, trying to protect your long-term health. But is it where it needs to be? No. Do I think that it's changed the game for the better? Yes, absolutely. And hopefully it continues to change and improve as the game continues to improve and our understanding of what these long-term health effects are continue to get better and better. So thank you very much for the question. That was a good one. Next one. Hi, can you do a video on weather adjustments of quarterbacks, like grip, like muff, like balance, etc.? What do you do? What is necessary? Do you eliminate routes differently during rain? Good question. 'Tis the rainy season. Almost everywhere except here, where it never rains. Yes, there are definitely some adjustments, depending on what level you're at. So, for example, I coach a high school football team. We play with mostly leather footballs. Well, if it rains, we have rubber footballs, I think, that are better and easier to throw and handle in the rain. I think if you play college or pros, where you're dealing with leather, there are different ways to do it. I know at the end of my career, I used to wear gloves in the rain, and it was a lifesaver for me. All of a sudden, it was the same no matter what. It didn't matter if it just got dunked in a pool or if it was dry out. It felt the same on my hand. Now I had to switch the glove every single series, and obviously it's cost prohibitive for most people to do that. But when you're a professional, you have access to different levels of equipment. So for me, when I transitioned to gloves in the rain, way better. Didn't have to worry about anything. The only thing, and to be honest with you, I never really, unless it was like a legitimate torrential downpour, I don't think it ever really impacted much of the football throwing element of it. Now, if you're in a monsoon, absolutely. Certain times in the CFL with weather where it was so bad you couldn't even play catch, yes, it's out of impacts the game. But I think most times on offense specifically, I used to think you have a huge advantage in bad weather games because you know where you're going. You can cut faster. It's not a reactionary cut. It's a where you're going, lean, balanced. You got the huge advantage. I think throwing the ball, the thing that I used to like to eliminate, because you end up over the course of a decade of a career as a professional, you practice a lot in the element. So you get better at it, especially if you're living there. And I think for me, the thing that I learned from watching certain guys do it at a really high level is you try to eliminate any of the touch throws. So like a route, you would throw like an in route over a secondary level defender, like a linebacker where you feather it in, or a seam route. You really want to just drive throws. So you want to drive outs or drive curls or anything where you can kind of throw it as hard as you can so you don't have to have any sort of touch. You lose that kind of touch off your fingertips, I think, when you play in the rain. So that was the one thing that I used to try to eliminate, especially the second half of my career where I felt like I got better in those weather situations where I just wanted as many drive throws as possible. I want to throw it as hard as I can and not worry about throwing any sort of touch balls or corner routes or things like that. I want to just rip it and let it go. That was kind of my main weather adjustments. Chris, finally here, last one. Great content, JT, as usual. I'm teaching my young son about the game, and he would love to see the explanation of how QBs operate at the line of scrimmage. In particular, if you could explain both the snap count and audibles. What is the hard count, and when do you use it? When do you use the silent count? How does the rest of the O-line track the silent count? How and when do you audible, and how do you get the O-line and receivers to change, modify their adjustments, assignments? There's a lot in that question. I'm going to do my best to try to unpack it here. So first, hard count. I love to use the hard count really often. I think you definitely want to use it on third and short situations. And really, it depends on what kind of offense you're in. You can either go on 2 or 3, or you can do the double count where you do a 1 full cadence, and that cadence can go on for as long as you want. And then basically you have the second cadence, which is the real cadence. So those are my favorite hard counts. I think the audible element of it, again, is different in every system. But most often you have a certain play versus a certain look, it's not good. You then have a package that you can kind of audible in. And really audibles have changed, I think, a lot over the last decade of football, where now coaches on the sideline kind of have the capacity built into the system to be able to change plays from the sideline. So you see all those guys kind of go, look to the sideline, or like that type of thing, where those are built-in coach audibles where they're changing the play at the line of scrimmage, as opposed to, the quarterback anymore. You don't really see Peyton Manning out there anymore kind of yelling like milkshake, strawberry, like he used to for 20 years. That type of stuff has kind of evolved into probably what most people think is a more efficient system of the coach, the communication on the sideline, being able to get into the best play possible. And then the silent count, again, different every system. So you watch any team, you see a bunch of different teams do it different ways. You see the hand, if you're in shotgun, see the hand down by the quarterback. You see the lift in the leg. You see the guard kind of look back at the quarterback and then tap the center. You see the center look through his legs. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. I don't think one way is that much better than the other. The way that I think it gets a little bit more complicated is that when you get what the actual center does after he gets that kind of tap or sees it, usually they'll do a lift the head or turn the head real quick to kind of give the guys at the line of scrimmage, the indicator like, okay, we're snapping this thing. The other thing that I think is cool is I love the Patriots for a long time did the under the center silent count, where it comes up and Brady taps the center's bottom, and then it's basically one head count and we're going. That type of stuff, I think, just gives you a huge advantage when you're on the road. You can practice it like that all year. There's no special craziness. I remember playing for the Niners. We're in Seattle. Seattle's one of the loudest, if not the loudest place to play. So loud you couldn't even talk to each other in the huddle. Well, we didn't have a silent count. Like Mike Martz was like, that's our northern campus. We don't need a silent count. Well, I'm out there in the second series and they can't hear us. So I start going on a silent count. Well, he doesn't like that. And so, but there's, we're out there, like we got to make the adjustments and go. So all of a sudden we have a silent count. So things like that, you don't love to see as far as preparation, but I love the silent count. I think it makes things easier, especially if you can practice it all year round. People get used to it. Patriots have been the best at it for a really long time. So great question. All right. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate the support of the channel. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Thanks again so much for watching. See you next time.